I tell you what, it's pretty bloody hot, isn't it? So let's just jump into it, and hello everyone! This is Remlies from 40k Theories, and welcome to the June 2025 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now, let's jump into the questions. Charlie Mink asks, while the Cabal is non-existent, is there a possibility of smaller groups from various factions that have aligned in a similar fashion to the Cabal? A Cabal Light or Diet Cabal, so to speak? It's certainly possible, but I don't know if any organization like that exists currently, but it's certainly possible. Could an Inquisitor learn psychic powers from other races, like the Eldari runes of power? I guarantee that at least one radical Inquisitor from the Ordo Xenos has tried. Whether or not they were successful, however, is an altogether different matter. What are the key differences between Craftworld Simhan and the various Eldari Corsair coteries? So Simhan, despite being the most barbaric of the craft worlds, it is still a craft world, which means that its people still adhere to the path structure. You know, things like Path of the Warrior, Path of the Seer, Path of the Artisan, etc. So there will still be some, degree of discipline and for lack of a better term, a noble savage archetype, as it were. So that's Simhan, whereas the Corsairs, by contrast, they're just space pirates. They're privateers at best and raiders at worst. So that's the key difference. John Doe 142857 asks, what is the AMEC opinion on the topic of human pre-industrial technologies? I don't think it's ever been touched up upon, to be honest. If I had to guess, the AMEC probably don't even know about it because so much of humanity's history has been completely lost. Like in, I think it was Master of Mankind, where they found a fossilized skeleton of a monkey, and most of the biologists thought the prehensile tail was for a stinger or something like that. I could be misremembering, I'll be honest, but yeah, anyway, if I had to guess, I don't even think they know about it, to be honest, if I had to guess. So their opinion is, it never existed. It's always been industrial because that's how the machine god willed it. Or something to that effect, I don't know, but that's my guess. In an arm wrestling contest between a space wolf and an Ogryn, who would win? The Ogryn, hands down, because there's a short story in the 2nd edition Imperial Guard Codex, which shows the Ogryn Nork Deadog, the Ogryn bodyguard. He was dragging a Chimera by himself. Now a Chimera is about 32 tons, or maybe a bit more actually, it's probably about more like 38 tons, but regardless, it's over 30 tons, which is ridiculously heavy, and he was able to drag it by himself, so there's that. I mean, I know Wolfguard Ranulf, the really, really big boy space wolf, he was able to drag a Land Raider, which is twice as heavy, but you need to remember that Ranulf was considered to be an anomaly because he was bigger than Leman Russ, he was stronger than Leman Russ, and he was wearing Terminator armor, which would have also augmented his strength, so yeah, you can't really use him as an example, so yeah, Ogryn hands down. In case of a Necron civil war between the forces of Jarek the Silent King and Imhotep the Stormlord, what is your prognosis? Thank you for reminding me about the Pariah Nexus Crusade book because I need to read that, and apparently the topic of a civil war is discussed there, so yeah, thank you for reminding me, I need to check that out, thank you. Dragon of Elder asks, are there any kind of mass conveyors or transports for civilian travel in the Imperium? Yes there are, and in fact the new Fulgrim novel, Fulgrim the Perfect Son, the Imperium perspective opens up with a train ride, so there's that. Sigma-Knight asks, if Guilliman disbanded the Inquisition, how would this affect the Imperium and how would the Inquisition react? If I had to guess, the Inquisition would just ignore him. They would just carry on business as usual, they'd probably become an unofficial organization of the Imperium. Kind of like Section 31 in Star Trek, an unofficial official organization, so to speak. Do you think that Shadow Sun will slowly turn away from the Ethereals and become a High Priestess of Tal-Var? I can see her becoming the Prophet of Tal-Var. if that means anything, given the events of her novel, but honestly I can't see her turning against the Ethereals, at the very least not yet. That guy asks, if Sevatar returned, would he reunite with the modern Night Lords? I mean, he might try, but considering how shattered the Night Lords as a legion are, it would be very hard to do so. And not only that, but the biggest Night Lords warband, that's currently being led by Krieg Aesopus, who is a demon prince. And considering that Krieg Aesopus is, well, quite frankly, a prick, he's not going to allow Sevatar to take over, so there will be a fight between the two, and considering that Krieg Aesopus is a demon prince and Sevatar isn't, yeah, odds are in Krieg Aesopus' favour, so there's that. Do you think Guilliman has at least a suspicion about the Blood Angel's gene seed flaws, the Red Thirst and the Black Rage? Considering that he and Sanguinius were pretty close, especially during Imperium Secundus, absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. Is there a second sacred planet for the Mechanicus? Not as sacred as Mars, but just as important. I think Ryza, but don't quote me on that. Caiaphas Crane asks, how did Evrain help out in resurrecting Guilliman? From what I gathered, she just went with the fleet and Causewalter Reliquary did the resurrecting and armor fitting. By using her Inari magic. Long story short, it's magic, I ain't gotta explain shit, to be honest, as far as Games Workshop's concerned. But to be honest, I'm just going from memory because it's been about 6 years since I read Gathering Storm 3, so yeah, from what I recall, it was purely because of Inari magic bullshit. What do you expect or want to see in the next Bequin book, Pandemonium? I'll be honest, I've not read any of the Bequin books. I know, Heretical and all that, but yeah, I can't really answer that purely on the basis that I've not read the books. Same with your third question, Caiaphas, I'm deeply sorry, but I've not read the Bequin series yet, so I can't answer any questions relating to them. Sorry. And finally, Richard Martin asks, what do you think of the new Terminators? If you mean the Saturnine Terminators, the models are nice, but there will still be Nocturne pattern in my heart. How does having kids work in the Imperial Guard? Okay, so basically, if kids are born into an Imperial Guard regiment, they'll be raised by the regiment itself, like everyone becomes like an adoptive parent or an aunt or an uncle or something to that effect. And when they're old enough, they become what's known as a White Shield. This is not the same as a Cadian White Shield because Cadian White Shields are an altogether different thing, but they are similar in the fact that White Shields are basically teenage guardsmen, in essence, so I'm pretty sure this is actually covered in the Gaunt's Ghost books, because I'm fairly sure in one of the later books that one of the new guardsmen is the son of a woman who was from the earlier books. If I remember correctly, I could be misremembering, I'll hold my hands up there, but yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Do you think the Skaven could survive in 40k? As well as any other race? Yeah, sure. And that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this has been Remlies from 40k Theories, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!